this may or may not be a completely terrible idea because we do live on like a main street, so a lot of cars drive by, but we're gonna find out, fingers crossed. I can be louder. So, yeah, you know what? This is actually kind of perfect. I so badly want to like record in different places and have all these nice little spots to go to, but the reality is, we live on a noisy main street, and I have two crazy young cats, and there's someone working on the house right now. So the quietest and best place is literally my bedroom. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayla, and for those of you who are new here, I am a tarot reader, I am a medium, and I am also a subconscious mind coach. So the main point of bringing this series onto my YouTube channel and not just making it about tarot readings is to start to bring topics that I feel like aren't necessarily talked about enough, to this space where people can just access it and have it and like connect with each other over it. I'm learning how connected the community is here on YouTube, and that's where I feel like these messages and this insight need to come to, is just that it can reach more people, because it feels like Instagram is just not built for that. It's just becoming an advertising machine, and not that there isn't a fuck ton of ads on YouTube, and like, trust me, when I get my channel monetized, like, I'm 100% like diving into that so it can be a revenue stream for myself and my household. But the reality is that like it's a marketing space, and that's fine. I just think that YouTube lends itself to being a space where people actually go to sit down and spend time listening and learning. So that's why I'm bringing those things here. And I was trying to get clear on what it was that I was talking about today. Anywho, I do my best to like sit and be present and ask, like, God, what is it that needs to be talked about? Like, what am I the vessel for right now? And the word fear just kept coming up. And I feel like I have talked about this kind of recently, but clearly there's something else that needs to come through about it. But when I tap into the feeling of and the knowingness of fear and what it is and how it plays a part in all of our lives, it's just like making it as simple as you possibly can. Like, when you're in a state of fear and you're in a place where you're afraid of something, it is extremely difficult to like take yourself out of the situation and be like, well, like, let's look at this objectively, because sometimes you can't do that. And the more that I dive into learning about and understanding trauma, so that not only can I work on myself, but really help my clients, because so many of my clients come to me with a background or a history of trauma, and we do have to start there and acknowledge that first before we do anything else. So that's really important. But at any rate, the more I dive into trauma and understand it, the more I understand that people who are in states of fear, whether you're traumatized or not, and most people, even to a small degree, have dealt with trauma in their lives, whether they acknowledge that or not. But when you're in that state, that is like such an animalistic, natural state to be in, and it is, I need to protect myself. So nothing else matters when you're in that state of being. Literally nothing. Like, you won't be hungry, you won't give a shit about what your followers on social media think. Things happen when you're in a state of fear that make you so focused on your actual survival that nothing else matters. So like, for instance, let's just say that you were in a situation where it calls for you to like run. Like, it's fight, flight, or freeze. Those are the three like natural responses that we'll have. So let's just say it's flight. You have to fucking run for the hills in order for yourself to like live. Like, in order to survive, you have to run. The potential for you to like shit or piss yourself in that process is very high, because your body is like, we need to lose all extra weight so we can get out of here as fast as possible. Now, like, does that happen to absolutely everybody? No. But it's just highlighting the point that like, nothing fucking matters. When you're afraid and you need to get out of something, nothing else matters. So when we're in this like survival state, it's extremely helpful when you're in a situation like that. It's a situation where something is like do or die, you know? The problem is that we start to associate that feeling with really minor things, like very, very minor things. And I would like to preface that by saying that people who have dealt with like a moderate to severe level of trauma have a physically, literally, physiologically, mentally, biologically, we have a more difficult time moving away from that. You know, people who don't have very much, like little to no trauma in their life, they can detach from that whole like fear thing and see it for what it is and kind of move through it a little bit better. Whereas someone such as myself or plenty of other people I know who have a history of trauma, they have a difficult time realizing that there's no need to be so afraid and there's no need to be in a space of like fight or flight. Traumatized people actually have a tendency to just lean towards the freeze space because that's what we are used to. And humans are actually the only animal species that accumulate and have to deal with trauma. Animals of all sorts have very like natural, rhythmic, regular ways to like move through trauma physically and energetically. We just happen to have this beautiful thing that evolved called the neocortex, and it allows us to think more about everything that's happening. So like reptiles, for example, like the reptilian brain, the core brain that, those two crows, that was awesome. The other fun fact is that I am very obsessed with animals, and I'm very deep into building my truly shamanic practice and like way of living, because that's what it is. I don't personally consider myself a shaman. I more so consider myself a shamanic practitioner. That's besides the point. We're gonna backtrack. Anyway, I see animals and I think of all the things they mean and how I connect with it, and it's just like a squirrel moment. But it, damn, did I lose it? Fuck. Wait for it. Where do we have to go? The reptilian brain. So we have that core brain. Reptiles have this core brain where it's instinct, pure instinct. They act off of instinct. They see a bug, they flick their tongue out. They don't think about if they're hungry or not. They just fucking are like, yup. Something moves, they run away. Like, or, you know, the whole like freeze response thing. You know what I mean? So everything that they do is instinctual. That's the core brain. Now, mammals and things outside of the reptile, I believe in, I don't know about amphibians, but mammals have the limbic brain, and so this is like they start to have this concept of like socialization and thinking about things a little bit more. And then we have the neocortex, which is like we can really fucking think about everything to crazy degrees. That actually can hinder us. That can hinder us from moving through things, because instead of just allowing ourselves to move through something, we actually like think about it and keep it. We start to keep stuff, and like it stacks on top of each other. So, you know, I think a big reason why I'm talking about fear today is to just bring awareness to the fact that it's something that like we have the ability to trap that in our systems. And I think it's very important to start teaching people ways to understand that that's a thing that's happening, and also understand that you have the power and we have the tools to actually move through that and free yourself from it a little bit. So, for example, as someone who has dealt with like relationship abuse, so sexual trauma, emotional trauma, those types of things, multiple times, compounded from multiple partners in different situations, it's something that has built up and accumulated in my life. And I didn't understand how bad until I got into my first ever healthy, conscious relationship. And, you know, my partner Taylor made a joke the other day where I was explaining this to him, and he was just like, well, I view those other ones as like, you know, Ziploc bags, and that's your type of container you're used to, because I related to our relationship as a container. And he, you know, he said, those other ones are Ziploc bags. Like, I'm a Pyrex container, that good old glass stuff with a snap-on lid. Like, so there you go. There's an analogy for a healthy container of a relationship and not so much. But I explained to him, I said, you know, coming from a space where I'm so used to dealing with X, Y, and Z in these ways, sometimes when he does things that remind me of that, it's very triggering. And so my brain, now that my body and my brain has dealt with trauma, is just different from other people. And that's from like a scientific perspective. The more that I'm learning and researching and understanding, people who deal with trauma have different brains. We're made up differently, we respond and associate differently, and it's up to us to take radical responsibility in learning about that and working on it, if you choose to. Like, we always have a choice. I personally don't want to be a victim of my trauma. I personally don't want my trauma to lead my life. I want to lead my life, and I want to understand my trauma and how it affects me on every level, so that I can move through it and associate and understand it and use it as a superpower to like relate to and teach other people. Like, to me, that's super, super powerful. So understanding that I am different isn't an excuse. It's a reason to learn more. And by explaining to him and being able to say to him, like, you know, I'm literally made up differently now that I've gone through what I've gone through, it's helpful, because now it helps me see why I overreact to some little things that he does, because I know I overreact, but I literally can't help it. So when these things happen, now I have this lens of being able to tell myself, like, ooh, okay, I know that this is too much of a reaction and it's not what I want to do, but I understand why it's happening. Because if you just beat yourself up over the ways that you respond to things, like, you're not going to get anywhere. So being able to like lovingly understand, like, oh fuck, like, okay, that's why I'm doing this, but like, let's take a step back and what do I want to do about it? What do I want to do about it? Not what does my trauma want to do about it, what do I want to do about it? So instead of coming from that place of fear, instead of like living and reacting from that place of fear, how can we start to see the fear? How can we start to like notice the fear and say, ooh, okay, like, I see you, I understand. It's very similar to like the disowned parts video I made, you know, acknowledging and seeing those things for what they are. This is one of those things where, like, whether you have dealt with trauma or you haven't, you have this opportunity to view fear, especially in little circumstances like a household argument, you know, as like, well, you know what, this isn't threatening to me in any way, shape, or form, really. So how can I like take a step away from the fear aspect and step into compassion and understanding a little bit more? Because when we react from fear, we're just feeding that wolf. That's really it at the end of the day. So I feel good about that. I think that's about all I wanted to say. I know that was a little bit of like a stream of consciousness, other than that hiccup in the middle, but I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that this brought some insight and understanding to your day and hopefully your life. Please give this video a big thumbs up if it did, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have a goal to hit 1,000 subscribers by May, so I would really love your help and support in that. And if you guys weren't aware, I have a Patreon community where I do energy updates every week, like in detail every single day of the week. I do moon ritual stuff, so basically new moons and full moons throughout the month. You get crystals, we get live Zoom group stuff. It's just fucking awesome. It's really cool to have people there. So there's also a tier option if you just want to donate $2 a month to support my channel that I'm doing here. It means the world to me, so thank you. But other than that, I just really love and appreciate you guys. Please interact on this video so we can just get this info to the people who need it and the people who want to be self-healers and want to help themselves and other people. Like, community is so important, so let's work on growing that together and putting some effort together, because that is my goal and that is what I'm here to do. So I love you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And stay hydrated. I don't know. We're good. I'm done.